Welcome to Navigating a Broken Vessel. I'm Dave Harris, and I know that usually I tell you how excited I am about having guests on, but I'm especially excited. And I tell you what, the reason why I'm so excited is because this guest is one of my favorite, if not my most favorite guests. Of course, I'm talking about Ms. Shelly Harris. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I told you that you were my favorite just now. I think I did, at least. Maybe I said, if not my most favorite. You're my favorite.
Thank you. And you're my favorite.
Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, Shelly actually, she produces the show. And so a lot of times when we come up with things for me to say, it's her that comes up with those ideas. But I actually came up with that all by myself.
I thought you were going to say I had it written in. I was going to say no.
Nope. Shelly, she just lets me sometimes. She's like, you know what? Why don't you introduce me the way you want to?
Just ad lib.
That's right. And I lived up all of the abs. All right, here we go. So today we're going to do something special, Shelly. You've been on the show before. We've talked about things, but some people have had questions for us, right?
Yes. We've had several people ask questions after some of your episodes, and I was answering a few of the questions, but then I decided that I would just start keeping notes on them and then just would do an episode where we would answer these questions, because sometimes if one person has questions, maybe other people have the same types of questions. So
perfect. Well, we have a big list of questions. I'm going to get to the first one, actually. And, well, it says your name next to it. That means you read it, right? So do you want to read it?
Sure. I'll read it. Okay, this one was actually sent in a variation of this question by several different people. So that's why it's our very first question. How have you been able to have such a good marriage and navigate all of these years of stress, anxiety, and depression in such a positive way and stay happily married?
Well, that assumes, of course, that we're happily married.
I feel like I am. Are you?
I am. Yep. So the assumption's there. It's a good assumption. That is a good question. And here's the thing, because I've talked on past episodes about my mission experience and other things that have happened to me earlier in life before we even met each other. And so these are things that I've been experiencing with, or I have experienced with, since before we were married. And so that's true. And certainly there's been things that have gone on. I can tell you though, I'll sum it up with just one word. You tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's communication.
That's exactly it. Communication.
So why do you think that is?
I just feel like when you talk to your spouse and you let them know how you're feeling, then they don't have to guess. They don't have to try to figure out what you're thinking, why you're acting the way you are. Are you mad at me? What did I do? I just feel like when you're having a hard time, or if I'm having a hard time, if we let the other one know, then they can kind of either give you space or just help you out. And so you have been amazing at communicating and have basically taught me to be a really good communicator as well. And I feel like that is why we've been able to accomplish and to tackle anything in our marriage.
I also think that you have taught me to do great with communication as well. So it's not just one way. It's not like, I'm like this master communicator and I taught you everything I know. No, I mean, you've taught me things as well. I think for some reason, there's this natural inclination for people when they get upset to just assume that the other person should know that, one, they're upset, and two, the reason why they're upset. And I myself, and I mean, I've experienced that. I'm sure you've seen that with our marriage as well. I've never really understood that, how it's like, why not just say, I'm upset because of this? And then you just get talking and then you get to work it out and you go from there. I found we've done it both ways, right? I've kind of like, you know what? I'm going to be upset and I want her to figure out that I'm upset and why. And then I've also done this, you know what? I'm going to go in the other room because I'm upset because of such and such thing. Give me a few minutes and we'll talk about it. Is that true?
Yeah. And it's always works out better when we talk about things, but it's not only with just being upset, but just when you're having a hard day with depression and anxiety. If you let the other one know, then they can, they can help you navigate it, whether it's, give you some space or, do some things to help you. I always like to go back to the love language. If I know you're struggling, I'm going to help you out in ways that I know will be helpful to you.
Awesome. All right. Well, the next question. Now, I remember this question because we looked at all these beforehand, and I remember thinking, wow, okay, there's some big words in here. We got to unpack this one, right? So we'll go through it and then we'll unpack it. It says, what helps you be metacognitive about your own state of mind in moments of irritation, impatience, or frustration with family members so as to empower you to take a virtual deep breath and think before reacting? So often I struggle, meaning the person, so often I struggle noticing that my states of mind and heart are descending a path I later might regret. I like to sum this up or unpack this question as how are you able to look on the outside in or like the third person, talk about Dave in my case. Is Dave doing the right thing? Is this the way he should be reacting? Is this the way he should be thinking and so forth? And then look at it and say, all right, do I need to take a deep breath and not act this way? And yes, that's true. In fact, I can tell you that my therapist has even talked about that a few weeks back. He said, a lot of times we should look at ourselves from the outside in and say, let's talk about Dave. What does Dave need? What does Dave want? What will make Dave successful? What about past Dave? What about future Dave? What about present Dave? And I think that's a great way to look at it, to be metacognitive about yourself and to say, am I acting appropriately? It might be wise to ask another person and say, hey, am I acting appropriately? But you may not trust or like the answer. But if you say that to yourself, there's a classic thing, what would Jesus do? In my mind, I'm kind of like, okay, not only what would Jesus do, but also what would Dave do or what should Dave do when I talk about myself?
I actually really like that. What should I do in this situation? That might help you to make better decisions than if you just kind of acted on a whim. Like if all of a sudden you think, well, this is how I want to do it. Think, oh, should I do that? That's a good way to think about it.
And probably it's when like you're thinking most negatively, whether it's depression, anxiety, or just like bad mouthing yourself or having low self-esteem, which is things I've dealt with as well.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. All right. Next one.
Okay, this one was sent in by one of my sisters. And I thought it was a really good one, so I'm excited for this one. I have always thought Dave could talk to anyone. He seems so outgoing to me, so I was so surprised when I found out he has social anxiety. My question is, does Dave have social anxiety even with close family members? Like when our family gets together, does he still feel anxious to talk to the family? This could go for his side of the family as well.
Well, first of all, before I respond, I have a little monitor where I can watch you here because we got 3 cameras in the room, right? And we video this. So if you're listening to it, that's great. We do put it up on YouTube and we do a video podcast as well. So I can tell you that while you were reading that, I was looking at my little monitor where I can see what you look like. You look really pretty.
Oh, thank you very much. I wish I could see you in the monitor, but I can see you in real life and you look great too.
Oh, thanks so much. Maybe I look better on the monitor, maybe worse, who knows? But
I can.
anyway, I'm glad you brought this up. First of all, I can tell you that a person who struggles with things, depression, anxiety, other mental health challenges, I think this is true for other people, not just myself. And again, this is why I always tell people this whole podcast is not meant to be medical advice. I mean, we're not professionals. All I'm doing is saying this is from my own perspective. But what I found as I've continued living life is that a lot of people, I think, feel this way. First of all, when they're not doing well mentally in their own mind, depression, anxiety, whatever it might be, a lot of times we will fake things, right? So I can tell you very early on in our marriage, and getting to know your sisters, your parents, and your brothers, and so forth. I mean, it is one of those things where I can distinctly remember it's like, okay, I'm just going to kind of fake it till I make it kind of a thing. I'm going to come in here. These people are probably really nice, but I'm shy, whatever, but I'm going to do my best. But I can tell you, even at the very beginning, being at your house, even after we were married, I could tell you it was hard for me. I was uncomfortable. It's one of those things. It's like, I know her pretty well, especially after we got married. We got to know each other really well, but it's not the same in terms of, your family members and other things that you only see every once in a while still. More often than other people, but still not as often as like I would, interact with you. And so it is one of those things where I did feel uncomfortable, but what happens with me, and I suspect it's other people as well, is as I get to know people better, it is easier, right? And I don't know it like looking like if we look metacognitively, like the last question, looking at it, it seems silly, right? It's like, well, what's the difference? You get to know them better, you're more comfortable, but they're still the same people. I mean, it's not like you think, oh my gosh, they're going to be mean to me or yell at me or call me names or whatever. It doesn't really make sense to think that way, but I think I think it's just a human thing that as you get to know people better, that you are more comfortable with them. So, but I do remember, and you'll probably remember it as well. I remember having a conversation with you early on in our marriage when I was at your parents' house, I think at one time. Do you remember that?
I'm not sure which.
I remember having a conversation and saying, hey, just letting you know that I feel a little uncomfortable, blah, blah, just this is me, this is how I am. And we talked about it and you were aware then of how that situation was. It wasn't like I was like, hey, I really don't like that you're doing such and such or whatever it was. It's not that at all. It's just more like, hey, just telling you how I'm doing right now. Just communicating because you can't tell because I don't have a big sign written across my face that says something like uncomfortable or something like that. But I can tell you that there is a strange thing about me where I do feel comfortable in certain situations to where a person would be like, wow, that guy's like totally comfortable and social and he could talk to anybody. And in other situations, I will completely shut down and not want to talk to anybody. I remember being in classes in high school, being in classes in college, where I could be in one class like the most social person ever and do just fine. And then in another class, hope that no one ever talks to me and sit in the back corner and hope that hopefully no one even knows I'm there. So I can tell you, it just depends.
That's actually really cool, and I do remember having a few conversations when we were first married about you letting me know, and those times I kind of would just not leave you by yourself randomly, I would interact with you more so that you'd feel comfortable, but I also remember, like, I, on the other hand, I don't normally get uncomfortable in very many situations, but I remember the first time you took me to your parents' house, and I can't remember if I shared this the last time I was on your show or not, but I remember pulling up to your parents' house and I saw your house and I was kind of like, this is like a huge house. What does your dad do for a living? Because I thought that it was just such a big house. And I immediately got uncomfortable because here I'm a little country girl from Enterprise and, my dad was a farmer and, I was like, oh gosh, this is not going to be my element. And you said, well, my dad's a lawyer. And I immediately was like, no, this is not going to be good. I'm not going to do well at this. But I went in and your dad was reupholstering his couch. And I thought, okay, if he can just sit there and reupholster a couch when he can obviously afford to go buy a new one, this is going to be a family that I'm going to love. And I immediately felt so much more comfortable. But there's been times where I kind of had that pit of like uncomfortableness too. So
It's weird how that is because I remember that situation. I remember thinking, man, she's just the most social person. She's going to do just fine and not even thinking anything of it, and if we hadn't have talked about it, or which in that case we didn't until afterwards. But I can tell you that, I mean, I had no idea. And so it's a lot of times that's that communication coming back is just letting your significant other know, hey, this is what I'm going through. You don't necessarily have to change anything, just let you know, that kind of a thing. Or you might say, could you also, try and not leave the room? Don't leave me alone. Let me go to the bathroom with you. No, I'm just kidding. But
not quite that.
you get the idea. Okay. So next question. Have you noticed since starting this podcast that some of the things you've struggled with your entire life have gotten better and easier to manage? This, I can tell you a short answer in terms of specifically what it says here, gotten better and easier to manage. I would probably answer that as a no, that I wouldn't say that things have gotten better, and I wouldn't say necessarily that things are, quote, easier to manage. What I can tell you is that as I've gone through every therapy session, as I've learned more about my own mental health and some of the things that I've dealt with and things like that, it is easier for me to understand. That's probably, rather than easier to manage, I would probably put it as easier to understand. And so I can be a lot more metacognitive, like I said earlier, where I can look on the outside in and say, okay, Dave, I can understand why Dave is thinking this way. A perfect example. So I got up about 4 o'clock in the morning this morning and I had to pee. And so of course I went in and peed. And while I was using the bathroom at 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember thinking, man, I feel depressed. I feel like this is going to be a crappy day, that I'm not looking forward to this. This 4 in the morning, right? But I actually, after that, thought about it and I thought, you know what? This is the way Dave is all the time when he wakes up, when he's sleepy, that kind of a thing. And so I'm not going to just tell myself this is going to be a crappy day. Not yet, at least, right? I'm going to let my sleep finish. I'm going to go back in there, get in bed and go to sleep. I'm going to see what happens when the sun comes up, that kind of a thing. I distinctly remember thinking that. And so I guess it depends on how we would define easier to manage, but I can say that as I have gotten to know myself better and the way I think better, it has been easier for me to understand why I might be thinking that way. And yes, do things like put off. You know what? I'm not going to make a judgment about this day just yet. And so that is one thing that has happened. Have you noticed anything with me?
Actually, first of all, before I do, the next question actually goes along with that. But before I read that and answer it, because it goes along with what we were just barely talking about, I want to tell you I'm very proud of you for thinking of future Dave rather than present Dave, because you let yourself go back to bed and see how the morning was going to play out. And that was awesome, because then it didn't put an idea in your mind that you're just going to have an awful day. So good job.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
But the next question goes along. So let me read it and then I'll answer, because I have noticed. What are some of the things that you've started to implement since starting this podcast to help with your anxiety and depression? So the previous question, have you noticed some of the things? And you said, no, not really. But I, on the outside in, have noticed quite a few things that, and so to go back to your therapy session a few weeks ago where you found out that you were neurodivergent and had ADHD, that was like a huge, huge instrumental time in your life, because we've done a lot of research and like so much more that I think you should do another podcast with a few more of the things that we've found out, because it's just been so awesome. But one of the things that we learned is that body doubling is a thing that someone with ADHD likes to do. And if you don't know what that is, it's where, for instance, you like to have someone there with you and it helps you to get started on a project or whatever. Like, you don't want to just go and do it on your own. You want to have someone there with you. Well, you've always been that way. You want me to work in the same area as you, or it's something that you would like to have someone help, to help you get started. And I've always thought, that's kind of weird. Maybe we need to help with that. Like maybe we need to figure that out so that he doesn't always have to have that. But as soon as we learned about it, it's just a normal thing. It's not a bad thing that you like that. And so we have used this body doubling. I'll always say, hey, let's get started on this thing. Do you need a body double for a little bit? And it's kind of become like a fun thing where I'll either, stand behind you and give you a shoulder rub while you're starting, or maybe I'll sit down and work on some emails that I need to respond to. And we're both accomplishing things and you're able to get a really good start. And then I don't have to sit there all day. I can go and do my stuff. So there's been several things, but that's just one of the things that I've learned, or that I have seen that you are implementing.
And I appreciate that. And what's interesting about that too, is a lot of things are things that have happened. Yes, it's since the podcast has begun, but it's also things that I've learned in other venues, right? Therapy or my own research, things like that. What's interesting about that too is I think it's important for anyone who's listening, at least in my case, again, this is just my own experience, but it is an ongoing process, right? I've learned that I have issues years and years ago. It's been decades. And here I am still learning more about myself, learning more about how I think and how I tick. And that allows me, just like that question, to think metacognitively and be like, oh, okay, this is great. The interesting thing about the body doubling is I learned about an app, and I want to tell everyone about this. It's not an app, I guess it's a website, but it's called Focus Mate. And I learned about this using AI because, and I've had an episode talking about AI, but I've learned about this website. The purpose of Focus Mate is to team people up from around the world so that they can do virtual body doubling. I haven't done it yet, but it's basically you just start off, you say, okay, I want to do an hour, and this person comes on, you are there virtually on a Zoom call, whatever it is. You say, hey, I'm Dave, and I'm going to work on this for the next hour. And then they say the same thing about themselves, and then you mute and you just stop talking, but they're just there. They're in the room, they're helping. And what's fascinating about that is I've kind of always known, but I didn't know that was like normal, right? That's normal. I've kind of I don't understand why it is that I just do better when Shelly's in the room. Even to a point like with my dogs, right? If my dog, because my office is upstairs, but it's the only room upstairs, it's specifically for my office. I've actually found when the dog is up here, and I know the dog is up here, then I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. But as soon as she leaves, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm on my own now. That's no fun. But
Your
yes,
dog is your body double.
that's
That's
exactly,
awesome.
yep, I body double with my dog. All right. So, next question then. How did you get a catch, such as Shelly, if you struggle having conversations with small groups or one-on-one? This is a great question because first of all, I think yes, Shelly is a catch, and it's like the best of all the catches, right? This is like getting like the largest grouper that anyone's. I'm just kidding. No,
Oh
but
boy.
you are quite a catch, and that's all there is to it. So, sometimes I ask myself, how did I pull this off? And it's true because the struggle that I have having one-on-one conversations, having small group conversations and so forth, things that we've talked about in previous episodes, you would think, well, how does this work with Shelly? In fact, I'll tell you a story. When I first knew Shelly, first time I ever saw you, and you'll remember this, was in an institute class, a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints college level course called Dating and Courtship. I had just come off my mission and I came home early. It was a year early. It was about 2 months later, this class had started up, and I saw you for the first time. And the way that I saw you was because your interaction with the teacher. And the teacher and you were socializing so much that I thought, well, they must know each other. They're lifelong friends, or they've had a course together before. They know each other. That's all there is to it. And he made you the class president. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. He knows who she is and so forth. So he makes you the class president along with your cousin, who you were friends with as well. And I remember thinking, she's cute. I like her. But I can tell you in that course, there were 20, 25 people in there, all my age, all our age. And the only person I knew was one person who was from my hometown. And he sat right in front of me or right behind me. I can't remember, but he was the only other person in the room that I knew. And so that situation is one of those, don't talk to me. I'll sit in the back of the room. No one talk to me and, blah, blah, blah. Right. And, the guy who sat behind me, the guy that I knew would sometimes talk to me and whatever. I'd talk to him, whatever. But in reality, it's like, hey, don't talk to me. But that situation, I totally got wrong because you've told me that that's not the case at all. Talk to us about that.
I met him that morning when I walked into the room. I had heard he was a fantastic teacher, and I had heard that that was a really fun class. So I was like, okay, it's my first institute class. I just graduated from high school. I'm going to take a dating and courtship class because I got to get married now. I'm out of high school. So I signed up for the class and I walked in, and he, was just super outgoing and fun and just so much fun to talk to. And so I just got talking to him that morning and just kind of, we hit it off. And then he just came and asked me, he said, would you like to be one of the presidents? We'll have, you and one other person. And I said, yeah, my best friend Shiloh, we'll have her be, the other president, and then we'll just handle this together. And he said, okay. So yeah, I had just met him that morning. Probably the conversation we were having was the first one I had ever had, the one that you saw.
And that's just crazy how much I misread that. And the other interesting about that, and getting back to the answer to the question, is you and I never talked. I would say we didn't say a single word to each other during that course. Now, I was only in that course about 3 weeks, which would have been probably 6 class sessions. And then I was gone because that's what happens to me, right? You get uncomfortable, or I would get uncomfortable, and that would be it. I would be gone. And so during those 6 sessions or whatever, though, you and I never talked. And I probably only talked to 3 people in that whole class, including the teacher, right? So it was probably the guy I knew, the teacher, and then I probably talked to one other person, I'll bet. And then I'm like, okay, cool. It didn't work. I'm out. But then about a year later, year and a half later, you moved into the same ward, the same church congregation with all these other single adults, including myself. And because of that situation, there were a lot more opportunities to socialize that were less uncomfortable for me. In other words, it's not like you and I having little conversations. I knew other people in this congregation. I already had my friends there, the people I was living with, and so forth. So it was easier for me to be myself, quote unquote, I guess, and not be so like crazy timid. But what's fascinating about that is that you and I got to know each other better in that situation, to a point where when I first asked you out, it was a one-on-one situation. It was just you and me, and we had that conversation and I asked you out. But I'm not sure that would have happened. Like, I would have never done that in that dating and courtship class. I would have never done it because I'd have been like, oh, she knows she's comfortable here. She knows the teacher. She's been doing this for years and years. She knows what's going on. And I totally misread it, not knowing that this was the first time you'd met the teacher, the first time you'd been in the class. You just got out of high school. You don't know what's going on or anything. I just assumed.
Yeah, well, and also I think another reason why you were more comfortable is because I knew Rowdy before, your best friend Rowdy. You lived together, you were best friends. He actually used to come over to my apartment and hang out, not with me, but with some of my roommates. But I knew who he was. He would joke around and talk to us all the time. And so I knew him and moved into his ward because my roommate knew him and wanted to move. You know, when we were going to move, she said we should move into Rowdy's ward. So that's what we did. We moved into Rowdy's ward, and there you were. And I was like, oh, there's that guy. I used to be in a class with him for like 3 weeks, you know. And then so we were kind of in the same group at this time because we knew Rowdy, you knew Rowdy, and so we kind of hung out a little bit at family home evenings and stuff. And you seemed very much in your element in family home evening because you were one of the people that planned the activities and you would carry it out, which you did really well at. If you were in charge of something, you always excelled at that. And so that was where you were in your element. And I think that's how we kind of got to know each other, is through these activities and stuff like that. So, and one other thing, when you want something bad enough, you won't stop until you get it. Like, you know, you decided you were going to get a PhD living 300 miles away, you did it. So I think you maybe decided you wanted to pursue me, and that's what you did. You know, so I think if it's important enough to you, you will do that, but I think it just takes a little bit of time to get there. So
Yeah, and definitely you and I have had, uncomfortable in my mind conversations, right? I'm like, okay, I can't believe this, Not that the conversation was uncomfortable, but in my mind, it's like, oh, she's so cute. I'm just like this guy. But anyway, you've got the next question, I think.
okay,
Yeah.
let me find it. Okay. Um, we have heard what Shelly does to help Dave and to fill his cup. What does Dave do to support Shelly when she needs a little extra?
Do you want to answer it, or do you want me to?
I can answer it if you want, from my perspective, or if you want to tell me what you think.
Well, I think it's getting at what we were just talking about, how like I struggle because when we talk about me misreading the situation and stuff, I do that all the time. Like it's funny because in my mind, like you're doing just fine, right? And it's weird to think sometimes, oh, okay, I can tell Shelly's sad. I could tell Shelly's frustrated, something like that. It again seems so silly because I think, some people, I look at it and I say, I wonder if Dave is like strange or whatever because he doesn't recognize when people are struggling, right? But it is one of those things where a lot of times I don't really notice. And so with that in mind, I do try. One of the things that I've done that I think has been very successful is I have completely trained myself that whenever you're talking, I will tune in. I have tried my hardest to do that because there's been times where I've been concentrating on studying or reading or doing some computer coding or something like that, to where I'm so focused in on it that you and I, and you've said it, we'll have a full conversation and I literally am not there. You and I are talking, I'm answering questions appropriately and so forth, and I'll have no recollection of the conversation.
And then we go and buy a car and you didn't even know about it because you said yes when... No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah, I mean, I can imagine that would happen, right?
No,
But
not
anyway,
to that extent.
it is one of those things where I have specifically been training myself that every time yeah, if you're talking to me, I want to know that you're talking to me and I don't want to be the kind of guy that's ignoring you, that kind of a thing. So that's one thing. It does catch me every once in a while because I know what'll happen is you'll be talking to like one of our kids. And so I'll go back to my computer like, oh, okay, she's talking to one of the kids. Go back to my computer, and then I find out that you actually started talking to me and I had no idea. And so, oh, are you talking to me? And it's not, oh, are you talking to me? It's not like I'm being a mean guy, It's like, oops, I just didn't know you were talking to me. I thought you were still talking to Ashley or whoever else, right? And so that is one of the things that I've tried really hard to do. I've really tried to also just pay attention and know, oh, she needs a little bit more, from me. She needs, whatever it might be. Maybe I ought to clean the kitchen or clean the bathroom or something that might make her feel better. That kind of a thing. Those are some of the things that I do try to do. And I do try and just be a fun guy as well, a decent husband.
You are. One thing you always do, you know my love language, and I think in the last episode I misspoke when I said my love language. I think I said it was acts of or words of affirmation, something like that. That is one of them that was very strong, but my most strongest love language is acts of service. If you do something nice for me, that is what I love, and that's, and you know that, and you do that for me. Like, we have like a really good system going, you and me. I hate unloading the dishwasher. I don't know what it is about it. I hate it. And you hate doing the dishes. And so I will go in, I'll be like, oh, I've got to get the dishes done. And I will open the dishwasher and you've already unloaded it for me. And so stuff like that, oh, it helps me so much, especially if I'm like having a really bad day or if I'm like just grumpy or whatever. Like it makes everything different. So it's just, those are some of the few things that you do. You do a lot of things for me that you're constantly doing. You do as much for me as I do for you. It's,
Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, I do really want to make it so I do want to have our relationship grow and get stronger. I have found in the last couple of years, and maybe you've noticed it too, it just feels like, holy moly, we're like totally in sync. Like, it's weird how I'll start thinking something and you'll start saying something and it's exactly what I was thinking. It's weird, almost scary how alike we are.
yeah, it's weird. We do share a brain now. It's crazy.
I'm okay with that. I won't say, what am I thinking right now? Because you'll probably say something yucky or whatever. But
Yeah, I would. Don't say it.
well, I'll ask you the next question. How about that? We'll move topics. What are some of the upcoming topics on your podcast that we can look forward to?
Okay, this one is a really good one. I'm excited about this because we have recorded a few really awesome ones I'm really excited about. You've talked in multiple episodes about Rowdy. Rowdy is your best friend, and you have an episode that if everyone hasn't listened to it yet, they should. It's, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's basically finding your Rowdy, find your friend that will help pull you out of this, funk or whatever you need, because Rowdy was that for you. We interviewed Rowdy. He's a mental health therapist, and you get in a very deep topic, kind of talk a little bit about suicide and mental health, and it was really powerful, really good. So don't miss that one. That one is actually going to come up, I believe, next week. So that one is coming up. It's going to be a good one. We also have a few other ones of you that are, just unpacking your mental journey with, therapy, and with all of that, you're just letting people know what you're learning about and stuff. Another one that is coming up, we interviewed a man from up north. His name's Eric Dykes. I met him through a mutual friend about 10 years ago, and it was about the time my dad died. My friend reached out and told me that he had lost a wife due to postpartum depression, and that he posts a lot of powerful things, and she thought I would be, it would benefit me to follow him on social media. So I've been following him for about 10 years, and we reached out to him, and he actually came, and you guys had a really good, powerful discussion about, postpartum depression and mental health with women. There's a lot of stuff that he's got a lot going on, and some exciting things, and it's one you won't want to miss as well. And then we have one more. We haven't interviewed her yet, but she's coming on, I believe, this weekend, and that one will be a few weeks out. But my cousin, Kim Dellis, she lost her parents and two brothers on the way to the MTC. Her brother was leaving for a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they were all killed in a car accident. And she had their family went through heartbreak really, really badly. She's going to come on and talk about her journey and how she was able to navigate that. So those are just a few. We've got a lot more coming on, but we also have a lot, I'm sure there's a lot of people that you know of out there. If you know people and want to submit their names or see, we are more than happy to reach out to people. And if you know of someone or even a topic, we'd be happy to find people to discuss topics. So those are just some things that we want to put out there soon.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, yeah, that conversation with Eric Dykes, yeah, that was cool. He is a cool guy, awesome person, been through a lot as well. And then of course, Rowdy, Rowdy, yep. Rowdy's just Rowdy. Every time he comes to the room, I remember a week or two ago, someone said, yeah, I know Rowdy. It's a common friend. And I said, oh, that's cool. And he says, well, yeah, but everybody knows Rowdy because he is he's just a phenomenal person. He's the kind of person that people want to get to know because he's just literally a phenomenal person in everything he does. And I tried to one up him. I said, actually, I've known Rowdy for 35 years, though. So there's that. But anyway, and I know there's people out there that have known him since he was a kid, right? No longer
His
than
mom and dad, huh?
that's
I'm
true.
just kidding.
Next one, what does a bad mental health day actually look like for you? Yeah, this is a good question because I can tell you a lot of people will talk about treading water. For me, I feel like when it's a bad mental health day, I feel like I'm not even treading water anymore. I'm under the surface of the water and I have just a straw that's reaching up to the surface, bringing me oxygen. That to me is how I would describe a bad mental health day, where it's just tough. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. There were times where, I thought, how am I going to survive this day? I don't want to get in the shower. I don't want to go to work, that kind of a thing. And so on those days, for me, I'll do the bare minimum. I mean, I'll say, you know what? I'm going to do the bare minimum. I want to make it so I don't get fired. I want to make it so that I don't smell. Those are, some of those things. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do the bare minimum. And so if I have to go to work, I'm going to go to work. If I have to take a shower so that I don't smell, I'm going to take a shower so I don't smell. But as soon as I'm done with these bare minimum things, I'm just going to do things that I feel like doing. So, I mean, a bad mental health day for me is mostly going to be related to depression. Anxiety is just something, social anxiety specifically, those are just things that I just struggle with all the time. But when it's a bad mental health day, it's going to be a depression day. And for me, knowing that those depression days will happen in the future, knowing that, I can still just tread water and they'll get better. I know that, as time goes on, I'll get out of this funk kind of a thing. Those are things that help me out. And I can tell you that my bad mental health days are getting fewer and further between because I am learning more about myself and I'm learning about how to work with things. And I do have medications that I'm taking, things like that have been very helpful. And for me, it's not a stigma at all to talk about mental health. It's not a stigma at all to say, yep, I go to therapy and I have a psychiatrist and I do medication and I, whatever. Those to me are not problematic at all because I want to have fewer bad mental health days as time goes on. So, I mean, that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, I can see that. I also, just thinking back to a question that you answered just a few minutes ago about how when you were in the bathroom this morning and how you were just like, I'm not going to let this play out now. I'm going to go back to sleep. And, so I think another thing is just kind of let yourself know it's okay to feel this way right now because it's going to get better. It may take a few days or it may, but it will get better. It always gets better. And, don't just think that it's going to always be horrible. Like just try to think positive and do the best you can. Just do the best you can.
That's exactly right. Tread water. At least you're still not drowning.
Mhm.
I can also tell you that for me, there's a religious aspect of it as well. I don't want to read a chapter from the scriptures. I don't want to say a long prayer, but I've learned that, maybe I'll say, you know what, I'm just going to read a verse. I'm going to pull up the Book of Mormon and just open it up and read a verse. Or I'm just going to say, Heavenly Father, please help me today. I need help. Please help me. And that's the end of the prayer, right? Be done with it. Because to me, when I'm in that bad mental health, that depression time, it's like, I don't even want to reach out to anybody, including God, but I know how necessary that is. And so I will tell myself, you know what, I'm just going to do a little bit. Again, it's just, treading water kind of a thing, just barely staying up above the water saying, well, at least I did this. I read a verse. I said a prayer. I got up and got in the shower, whatever it is. These are these little things that I've accomplished and they've worked really, really well.
I love that.
Thanks.
Okay. Um, do you have any advice that you would give to your younger self?
This is a good one. I mean, we reviewed all these before, and I thought, how would I answer that? And I'm always the kind of person I don't like to really think too much about things or write things down. I like to be extemporaneous. I like to just come up with things as they're asked. I did think about this one a little bit though, because for me, I a lot of times when we want to think about what advice we would give our younger selves, we might do something like, hey, you should probably do this because then you won't experience this, or you should not go to this place because this won't happen to you, right? Or, it's kind of like we want to tell ourselves that we don't want to have bad situations or bad things happen. For me, though, I look at my life in the past and I think, all of these experiences have made me who I am today. And so if I were to tell some, advice or give some advice to my younger self, and if I were to say, hey, you're going to finish your mission a year early because of depression, or you're going to, if you go to Mrs. Viner's class, she's going to give you a report card that says capable of doing better, or whatever. If I were to talk myself out of doing those things or give that advice, then I wouldn't have had those experiences. And although it's kind of poopy to think, about these kind of poopy experiences that I've had, at the same time, it's kind of like, these are what have made me who I am. These are who have molded me into who I am. And although I would love to never have depression again and always be able to just go talk to people and never have anxiety and never have, bad, self-esteem and stuff like that, I look at it and say, this is who I am. I'm okay with it. And I suspect that as time goes on, as more time goes on, I suspect that things will get better. And I definitely look at the afterlife and think, yes, things will get better. Just stick with it. Just stick with it. Dave, this is who you are. People, I always remind myself, Dave, you've had successes. You did get quite a catch with your wife. You do have education. You've gotten good jobs that have happened. Yes, you've had a lot of jobs, but you've got good jobs that have come your way. And there's good things that have happened. And so I keep reminding myself, Dave, it's all right. You're doing okay. Concentrate on these good things that have happened. Now, whatever they are, and I would give advice to anyone who's out there. It's like, maybe you don't have a significant other, maybe you don't have whatever the other things I just talked about, but there are things that are positive things in all of our lives. And so we can concentrate on the negative, we can concentrate on the positive, and we might look at the past and say, I want to change my past because it would sure be nice if I never went through that. But at the same time, you could also just be happy and proud of who you are today. And in my mind, that's what I've been trying to implement.
I feel like we share a brain because I would have said maybe not quite as eloquently as you did, but I would have said basically those same things. Give yourself the credit for the things you've gone through. These are, you've gone through some hard things and you look at where you are now. And I feel like that's a great answer.
And honestly, I really firmly believe that that is the purpose of life, right? I mean, you could argue there are probably 5 or 6 purposes of life, but I believe, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the main things for us as members of the church, following the gospel of Jesus Christ, is that life is not designed to be easy. Life is not designed to be perfect. Right? I mean, if life were meant to be easy, if we were meant to be perfect, why are we even here? Right? Why don't we just stay in the pre-earth life? Right? But there are things that we needed to learn here on earth. And the reason why we're here on earth is because by experiencing those trials, we become better people. And so I even keep telling myself that as well, to say, hey, Dave, you've gone through some stuff. That's great. You agreed to do it. That, in my mind, I agreed to do it. I'm like, yep, sign me up. I'm coming to earth, that kind of a thing. And so I trust past Dave that I didn't even know that I have no recollection of, right? And I trust that past Dave was right when he said, yep, I'm going to earth because even though it's going to be kind of poopy, I'm going to learn a lot and I want to be a better person, and that's all there is to it. And so I do many times in my life look back at that past Dave, pre-earth Dave, and I think, yep, I trust him. I trust him that he made the right decision in even coming here. I'm going to stick with it, that kind of a thing.
It's interesting that you're talking about that because it brings me back. On Sunday, I went to a ward conference and our stake president was speaking. He speaks in every single ward conference, and he got talking about the pre-earth life and the different plans, how we had the plan from Satan that he, told everyone, do you realize what you're going to put yourself into? If you choose this plan, you're going to you're going to have a hard life. Like, this is, can you do it? And then but my plan is it's a guarantee. You will never make a mistake. You're going to do it. And yet everyone here chose, the plan of Jesus Christ. And I got to thinking, I'm like, man, I'm surprised I didn't choose the other plan. I'm usually one that likes to be like, I don't want to have a hard life. I would rather, so I was like, okay, I'm really glad I made that decision. But it really got me thinking about, we're up there and we know that this is going to be a hard life. And I don't know, it was a really, enlightening talk for me. And so I'm glad you brought that up because it brought that to my mind again.
Cool. All right. So let's see. What routines help keep you grounded? That's the next question. What routines help keep you grounded? I can tell you that you brought it up, the ADHD, the autism and ADHD. For me, it's more ADHD than autism, but yes, a little bit of autism in there. The fascinating thing about autism, at least in the amount that I've learned about it, again, not a mental health professional, not a healthcare professional, but in what I've learned about it, people with autism like to have routines. They like to have things be the same. They like to have things work out. And so what's fascinating about that is I don't know if it's a left brain, right brain kind of a thing for me, but I can tell you that there's like half of my brain that says you want routine. And then there's the other half of my brain that says you want something novel, you want something interesting, you want something exciting. You don't want to have the same thing over and over again. And so you have like that autism and that ADHD side like as a constant battle with one another. So when I think about what routines keep me grounded, for me, it's funny because the routines I like and at the same time I hate them. So it's the routines that I am okay with doing. Those are what keep me grounded. So there we go. So in other words, I noticed it this morning. I get out of bed. It's the same thing. I don't look at my phone. I put my phone, in my pocket. I carry it with me. I put my watch on, put my glasses in my pocket. I get up. I use the bathroom. I go out and I turn the bedroom light on because you're always already up by the time I get up. I turn the light on. I go and I take my medicine. And then I go out and I see what's going on outside. I don't look at my phone straight away. I look at it usually after a few minutes of being up. But I've noticed that is very routine for me. It's the same thing every single day. And some people out there might look at that and be like, well, that's not really much of a routine. That's like 4 things on the list. And you kind of are going to do all those things anyway. It doesn't really matter what order. And what's weird about it is I'm okay with that routine. And I notice it. I do literally notice it every morning. I'm like, yes, I will now go turn on the light. And yes, I will now go walk over and I will retrieve my medicine and I will take it. Right. And it's almost robotic. And it's the same thing with showering. I do the same thing in the same order when I shower. I'm going to wash my hair, then I'm going to wash my body, then I'm going to brush my teeth. I brush my teeth in the shower, right? It's the same thing every single time. And I am okay with those things. And in other respects, I get crazy because sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish work. I'm going to watch TV for a little while. And then I'm watching TV and I'm like, I can't stand doing this. I need to go do something new. I'm tired of it. And you always love it when I get into a mood like that because I'm always like, okay, we need to move. Okay, where are we going to go? Right? It's go get in the car. We're leaving. We're going. And you're not a big fan of that. As far as the routines that keep me grounded, it would be kind of those normal, I mean, it sounds silly, but those normal hygienic routines, right? The things that just are what people do all the time. For me, those keep me grounded. There are habits or routines that I would love to implement that I have never been successful implementing. I want to write a journal every day. I want to read the scriptures every day. I want to make sure I'm saying both morning and evening prayers. I only do evening prayers at the moment. Those are routines for decades that I've wanted to implement that I would think would even keep me more grounded. but I can't implement them. They're too strict. They're too stringent. And I just have such a hard time doing them to a point where I've even felt guilty about it in the past. But to a point also where I'm starting to be like, you know what? You're just going to do what you do. Just keep on working it. Maybe your journaling is talking to everybody on a podcast. You could talk about how your life is. You could tell some life stories, that kind of a thing. I don't know, but those are the routines.
Upload them all to Family Search later and everyone can watch it and be like, oh, this is how my great grandpa Dave was.
That's right.
One thing before we go to the next question, one thing you do for routine that I think is very, very important, because with your mental health, if you don't get at least 8 hours of sleep every night, it's like we know the next day is going to be really bad. And so I like you with your line of work, you do trainings all over the world. And so sometimes you're training people in Singapore, sometimes in India, sometimes in Europe. And so you'll work all night long sometimes. In fact, next week or week after, you have two trainings 2 nights in a row from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. And so those nights you will make sure you get 8 hours of sleep. So you literally will go to bed at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon because you've got to be up teaching by 1 o'clock in the morning or something. And that is something that has become a routine for you. And it's very important. And we make sure we clear your schedule so that you can get that sleep. That is, sleep is very, very important. It can be detrimental to your mental health if you don't get it. So.
Yeah, I have noticed that as well. Yep, and 8 hours seems to be exactly what I need to
And it
do.
goes way too fast.
That's right. Let's see. How do you know when you need to ask for help? That is an excellent question. And in my mind, anytime, anytime. I am a big proponent of people having a therapist. I'm a big proponent of people having a psychiatrist. I'm a big fan of people having a confidant, whether that's a significant other or a family member, whoever that might be. And when it says, how do you know when you need to ask for help? I'm going to take that on two levels. Ask for help on a non-professional level and ask for help on a professional level. For me personally, again, this is all just my personal life. When I am ready to ask for help on a personal level, it's harder than on a professional level. It's a lot easier for me to say, I'm going to go see a therapist or a psychiatrist than to say to my wife, you're right there, and say, hey, I need some help with this. At the same time, I do believe that is something I've gotten better with, that I have kind of been like, hey, having a bad day right now. It's a depression day. I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but I do share with you more often about things that are going on. For me, it's different, the asking for help and the just sharing. It's easier for me to share and say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now, as opposed to, can you help me with this? I'm going through this, right? It's easier for me to just be like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I got some depression brewing right now, more than normal. Don't know what's going on. And then I just trust you to go with that and say, okay, great. It's his way of asking for help. In terms of asking for professional help, I have no problem with people who just don't feel like they even necessarily need a therapist to just go talk to one. Because you'll find, wow, this person is phenomenal, right? I mean, these are really, I think, some of the best people in the world. A person who is a mental health therapist is all the ones I've ever talked to, even the ones that aren't really good at therapy, are the kinds of people that just care about other people. It's like a nurse, right? A nurse who's helping you physically, right? You go into the hospital because you broke your leg or something. The nurses are like the most phenomenal people in the world. Mental health therapists and mental health professionals are the same sort of thing in my mind. It's just a different sort of treatment, right? It's the same sort of thing. It's a medical treatment that helps you, but it's mental as opposed to physical.
Yes, that very true. I I feel like in our relationship, you're really good at letting me know how you feel, but I also feel like I can tell beforehand. Like, for instance, yesterday, you were having a little bit of a rough day yesterday. That's probably why you woke up in the middle of the night not feeling great. But I remember you telling me, I just don't know what it is. I'm just not having a great day. And you said, I think I'm going to go to bed. And it's like 7 o'clock last night. And so I decided I would go and talk to you. And I just went in there, laid by your side, and we just talked. And I just kind of reassured you that you're doing better than you think you are. You made a couple of comments that things that weren't going great, as, maybe not as good as you had thought it was. And to me, I said, no, think about this. Look at this. Look at this. So I feel like you sharing with me helps so much. But I also think that I can kind of tell beforehand, because I could tell you were having a little bit of a hard day. It's just nice that you're willing to share it with me, because then it makes me I'd be able to help you more, or to know, do we need to schedule you another therapy? Do we need to just get you out of the house? Do we need to just let you have a minute? So.
That's awesome. I appreciate that very much. I tell you what, I know we have more questions, but let's maybe do a part two. How'd that be?
That sounds good.
Awesome. Let's do that. I can tell you, in terms of asking for help, I'm going to finish up with that. I think it works both ways, from both of your perspectives at home, right? Those who are listening at home, whatever it is, in the car, wherever you are. There's one thing about asking for help. I myself fully recommend that, but there's also the receiving end of a person asking you for help. Take it seriously, right? And maybe you don't have this huge belief that mental health is as serious of a problem for people or in their minds, whatever it might be. But if a person does ask you for help, take it seriously and say, hey, what can I do? What can I do to help you? Right. And like Shelly talks about, maybe it's just a matter of just saying nice things. Maybe it's giving a head rub or a neck rub, whatever it might be. But also it might be, hey, I'll tell you what, I know of this therapist. I've heard of a therapist. This Navigating a Broken Vessel recommends therapy. That's great. But let's just reach out. Let's just do a single appointment. I'll even go with you if you want, right? Whatever it might be. That to me would be an awesome thing to have happen. Now, again, we're not professionals. This is not professional. It's not medical advice. I appreciate it very much. But I do want to know what you think. Give me an email, dave@navigatingabrokenvessel.com. Go to our website, navigatingabrokenvessel.com. We've got all of the episodes we've done so far. You're welcome to look at or listen to all of them as well. And do go to our Facebook, Navigating a Broken Vessel, on both Instagram or Facebook would be awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.